One of the essential features of any programming language that is really hard to avoid is functions. Now, a lot of people will be coming from an object-oriented approach there where they would like to have the methods and classes and all of that, but I'll make sure that we also cover that. But also, functions are important and they need to be discussed quite a lot because these are going to be helping us quite a lot when we're creating the methods and classes and all of that. So let's try to discuss that. First of all, what is a function? Now, function is the most basic block. You write a line of codes, maybe a bunch of them, and you take all those lines of code and wrap them around inside a block, and you just name that block. So whenever you need to execute those all line of code, you can just call the name of the function and can execute them. Now let's discuss onto a very basic level what the function are and how we can deal with them. So first of all, you can see at the line number 10, of course, this is all the function and the syntax. On the line number 10, you can see we have a keyword func that is being used to declare a function. And after that, we name our function something like that, starting from the lowercase and every subsequent word. And it should be really the uppercase. Now, I'm saying it should be, but it is not at all a rule. You can have all of them as a lowercase, but it's a programming convention that you should follow. And after that, there is a pair of parentheses. Now in the Swift, a lot of places the parentheses are optional, but this is not that case. You always should have the parentheses out here. Now after that, we have got a set of curly braces, and inside that you can write n number of lines, like whatever the things are going on, a random calculation or just printing the values, or maybe hundreds of lines and all of these things. And calling of the function is really simple. You just need to say, hey, this is the name of the function, and that's it. That's how you get it. Now, if I drag it a little bit so that we can see our guy. Now notice a strange thing out here. Now it is really a random behavior by a playground, but this doesn't happen in a real code. Again, this is just a playground environment where we play, but a lot of things are different onto a real ground. You can simply say this is a military training, but the battlefield is really different. So you can see that the print is being out here, although it says that the hello world is being printed here, but at the real world, it is not going to be printed there. Anything inside the function doesn't get executed unless and until this is being called. So once this is being called, this should be replicated just against that. But again, there are a lot of features like that. So this is all about the basics of the function. Now let's move ahead to the one step further, that is passing the parameters and their default values. Now, for example, I want to pass on some values inside that. Let's say we want to calculate a score and the score is being added to 100. Now what happens in that case, you define exactly like the same, but inside the parentheses, you pass on something like this, like whatever the arguments your it is. Like in this case, we have an integer argument. So I'll say var score and then integer. Now this is how you make sure that the value is being type inferred. Again, important thing is var. If you don't put a var, this is going to put an error. Now why the error? Now whenever anything is being passed inside as a parameter, it simply thinks that as a constant and it assumes there is a let behind that. So make sure that you keep an eye for that. A lot of things really go really nasty if you don't see that. Again, in the line number 22, you can see that we have got an error. To get rid of that error, simply just say that we have got a var out here. Now this is a variable, otherwise it's a constant. So this is how you do it. And in the line number 32, we can see that we have got we are passing line number 33, the score changer is being called and we are passing 4 as a parameter. But now let me come up again here. The things goes a little bit wild when we have got multiple parameters. So for example, we have got one more parameter and it says, let's just say name, and we have to always infer it as some type. So I need to say that, yes, this is going to be a string type. So I'll just hit enter here and notice, okay, this is good. But the problem, the error rises out on the line number 33. Now, according to the new guidelines of the Swift, what it says that whenever you have something like this, you need to make sure that you name that parameter. One parameter, it's okay. You do not need to name. Two parameters, yes, you need to name them. So you have to simply say name and then the value should be equals to, let's say the value is going to be just like Kevin. Okay, this gets rid of the error, but how can you know that what type of name you should pass on? The good news is that the Xcode helps you quite a lot in that. So notice as I write this code changer, it says there is this code and there is a name. If I hit enter, notice that is the first one. So if I say 5 and put a tab, notice the first one, at the first one, you are not required to pass on the parameter, but of course you can. It will give you an error, but after that, you can simply say something like olive. That's good. But what about if I say something like this? If I say score and this one, if I save that, notice that it pops an error. Again, you can do that, but that would be an error case. Okay, quite funny. Now let's move ahead. Now, this is one of the case where we get a problem about the multiple parameters. So keep an eye on that as well. Now let's move ahead on to the multiple return values. First of all, let's talk about the return. First of all, we haven't talked about that. So you can see that this time we are having this arrow sign and a string. Now in these kinds of function, what we were doing is simply just calculating the value, but not returning anything. Returning is important. Do not get confused between the return and the print. Print just prints the value. Return just returns the value for the further calculation. For example, I just say string out here. That means it returns the string value. Now you can simply return the values as a variety of things. You could have done something like returning or calculations or integers and all of that. Important thing is this arrow and this string. Now you could have said, just like here, you could have returned the values and instead of print, we could have simply returned this code. Let's just try to do that, how to match it around. So I would just say return and I would say score. Again, definitely it's going to pop me an error. Let's get rid of that. And again, you can notice by seeing that unexpected non-void return value. And literally it's saying that, hey, you haven't mentioned what type of value should I return. I'm just saying int, save that, and this will let go the error. Not by that, I'll typo a little bit. And this goes the error, save that, and the error is gone. Now we are returning the value. So this is how you change the values and all of that. Of course, I'm going to keep all of those changes in my exercise files so that you can make sure that these things are there. Okay, now we have understood how the values are being returned from the function, and what we can see out here at the bottom that we have got this one for the score changer, the values for 05 and 04 are being displayed out here. Okay, good so far. But what about when I want to have multiple return values? Like in this case, I have got integer, but let's say my function calculates a tons of things, return some strings, some integers, some doubles, or maybe others as well. Again, at this position, tuples are important. So I've got an example from the Apple documentation out here. The example says that the function is min-max. It calculates, it simply takes an array and calculate what is the minimum value and what is the maximum value. Right now, we are not bothered about the data structure, what kind of algorithm it uses, is it fast or not? Let's just not worry about that. And we have got simply, there is an integer array being passed on. And notice we just infer it as an integer array. After that, we got this arrow sign and the tuples. Now the tuples, since we are returning the multiple values, it just says there would be a min, which would be of integer type. There would be a max, which would again be an integer type. I could have tons of them. I could have a string type, double type, wishes on me. Make sure that whatever you put out there, you also put there in the return. So that's a good thing that we need to have. Now, just for the sake of exercise, let's say what about if nothing is being passed inside the array? If the array is just nil, it will definitely going to pop an error. So what we need to do? Yes, you guessed it right. We need to make it an optional. And when I do so, it will definitely going to get me a couple of errors. So I need to tweak that out. And how I can tweak that? First of all, I need to check if array is empty. I need to return the nil. Because now the good thing about the return nil is that it can handle all of the things. Like there are 2 values, maybe 200 values, it is going to definitely handle that. Now we got a little bit error out here. Now we need to do a force unwrapping here. So what we have studied out there in the last movie is I can simply say if let, and then after that I can simply wrap the things inside the braces, and there it go. Now it fixed the error and everything is working fine. So we have done a little bit exercise. Now, of course, functions are not at all complete at this point, but certainly good enough to make sure that we are good to go. But definitely we can do a tons of other things with the functions. They are really powerful. They are really wide range of variety of functions being available, and a lot of things happens in the Swift with that. But definitely at this moment, I can say that you are good to go with the next movie.